Welcome to the Elevate Your Best podcast. My name is Michael Dankloffs.
And I am Bruno Martins from the Cyber Journey.
Today, we're going to talk about celebration as one of the four pillars of the Elevate Your Best coaching programs that I do. And Bruno is here to help me kind of unravel and talk about why is celebration so important? Why is it a necessity for us to really grow in our lives?
Many times we deal with people that are struggling to find purpose in life, to find some joy and motivation to do things. I believe that celebration, Michael, is a great way to tie up all those things because we are in the part four of four videos talking about the pillars, which are preparation, commitment, accountability, and celebration. And celebration is a great way to tie all those things together, right?
Right. So each of these is kind of on a continuum. It's not necessarily just one step and then you're moving on to the next one. It is really more of a cycle. It is as you're actually looking and preparing for what you're going to be doing, you're making a commitment to accomplish something to someone else or to yourself. You hold yourself accountable to it, and then you have to celebrate your wins. Because the momentum that, willpower that we talk about, that is supposed to be the discipline underlying everything, it really erodes whenever you don't really notice how far you've come. And that's really what the celebration is about. Is I was here, I moved to there, and we just celebrate that win, small or large. And oddly enough, as we take those small steps and we do notice the small moves forward, over time we can look back and say, wow, look at how far I've come. And those are actually really necessary because it can be really hard to look at only the failures, only the things where we didn't accomplish what we want. And that has a tendency to drag our energy down. If we're really talking about vibration and energy and momentum, celebration is how we do that. Sometimes it's just a simple pat on the back. Sometimes it's sharing with someone what you did. Sometimes there may be a reward involved. Doesn't need to be something huge either, but that celebration is really that dopamine hit, that crossing that thing off the list or checking the box that it's done is something that helps motivate you and move you forward.
I think it's so interesting that you say like crossing the thing on the list, marking the box. In the cyber journey, I put on the page where you find the first item, like a little box for the person to check. And I say like, hey, check this little box to get some dopamine. Because I think, Michael, that there is a great tool in something that people usually ignore. And what is this? We didn't evolve to be these sentient beings, all conscious, thinking about time, making schedules, planning systems. We didn't biologically evolve to this. So we can do those things. We are prepared to do those things. We are able to do those things. But this is not how our brain works. So how do we get to incorporate all this? We learn how we evolved, like we learn what are the things that we actually evolved to do, how our body actually works, and we communicate in the way that it knows, like to the mind in symbolisms and everything. I don't want to go too deep into this, but there are ways that we are going to discuss this here in future episodes. There are ways for you to properly communicate with your body. And when you do that, we need to understand how our body works into those aspects and how we can communicate with it, because are those little things that we do, like knowing that I can have a list and I can cross the list, I can mark the box, I can have the symbolism that my body needs, my unconscious mind needs to understand that I am moving forward. Because you touched on the point, Michael, that people many times just pay attention to the failures. It's so easy for us to get tied up into the failures. It's so easy for us to get tied up into the things that we didn't do, the things that we lack, the aspects of our lives that in which we are lacking. It's so easy to get lost into this. And we forget to pay attention into the daily accomplishments, because daily we are accomplishing incredible things. And even the small things in life to take care of your own life, as the wonder that is in being alive, in breathing, in doing all those things. Just by how do we do those things? We don't know. And even like that, just by being alive, we are doing incredible, remarkable things, and we can be grateful and celebrate about that, right?
Absolutely. And I'm glad that you actually touched on that, because that was kind of where I was going to go to next, is that reward, that celebration may purely just be gratitude. That waking up in the morning and actually being grateful that I'm taking another breath. I have another opportunity to actually help someone change their lives. I have another opportunity to learn something new, to the point that that's actually one of the things that's part of my daily practice is put together a 3-point gratitude list. Some people do 10, some people do 100. And it can be difficult for some people, if you are so focused on what you're failing at, to find those 3 things to be grateful for. Sometimes it is that I'm taking a breath today. If that's all you've got, then that's all you've got. But if it is something else that you have in your life of what you accomplished the day before, what you learned the day before, that is actually how we program our brain to look for new things to be grateful for. So we do program our brains by what we actually say to ourselves, what we actually put out to the world. If I say, I hate this, those words are very powerful. I hate when people cut me off in traffic. And guess what? The rest of your day while you're driving, people are going to be cutting you off in traffic. If you hate when people talk over you, you're going to have people talking over you because you're focusing on something that you don't want. But if instead I say something like, I am grateful that my commute is easy today. I am grateful that I'm actually heard and I hear what people say. You're telling your brain what you want more of. You're telling the universe, you're telling spirit, you're telling your vibration what direction you want to go by celebrating those wins, which is another huge aspect of why the celebration is so important, because you're programming your subconscious. You're
Mhm.
programming the reticular activating system. You're activating the law of attraction. You're activating the laws of the universe by saying, I want more of this. And some of those, depending on what your beliefs are very powerful motivators to get you to a place of creating the vision that you want for your life.
I wasn't so willing to go into this area of the wonder of living and all those things that you spoke about right now, Michael, because it's like the person is having all the problems that they are having in lives. They are living maybe scattered around, maybe in quiet desperation, maybe without purpose and feeling so lost. And we go to them and then we say, hey, be grateful for the breath that you take in the morning, be grateful for the things that you experience in life. I have been into places where it has been really hard. Things have been really gray. In those places, you don't. It's like you are surrounded by a fog, and this fog just doesn't allow you to see more than what is afflicting you, which is the many times uncertainty, the own fog, the own obscurity, the own lack of perspective of something different. One thing that I did in the beginning when I started my journey in personal development, which is clear for me that made me a lot of difference, Michael, it was the fact that I was naive. I already mentioned that, I believe, in the last episode. I was naive, not to know, like, exactly, not to depend on what I believed to be certain about my future. If somebody that had a result that I wanted to have came and told me, you know what, you should be grateful. Wake up and tell yourself, I am grateful for being here, breathing. And it didn't make much sense to me, like many other things. In my perspective, in the place where I wasn't seeing that. That was not what I could see. But then it's by believing, it's by having the faith that, okay, by having the faith in somebody that wants your best, by having the faith in somebody that has the results that you wish to have in life, watching them and say, okay, I'm going to wake up and I'm not really grateful for being here alive or something like that, you may think, but I'm going to say, you know what? Thank you for another day. And you try to put a better posture than this. With time, it will be easier for you to say, you know what? I'm actually thankful today that I am here and that I am breathing. It's that idea of faith before you make it, that people say fake before you make it, like, but I really think that is faith, have faith before you make it.
Absolutely. And there's also this other side to celebrations as well. And especially whenever you're in an environment that's very competitive, it can really feel like like sharing your wins, you're bragging. But around the right people that are actually supporting you to win, when you celebrate your wins, they're celebrating with you. And part of that, in order to get there, is you have to help others celebrate their wins too. and actually be there and be a witness to them and help them celebrate that. And maybe sometimes helping others to see where they are winning in their lives. Because it's as much for the person who's giving that to someone else of let's celebrate your wins as it's a gift for me. Because that is, once again, we're programming our subconscious to say, that's what it looks like. And you're telling our brain of, let's go find out more. Let's find ways to accomplish that so we can actually be in that space, which is a very different vibration, a very different feeling than, wow, Jack made the basket again. He's such a great guy. It's very different than, go Jack! Yes, go! That's where the celebration comes in, is also lifting everyone up with you. Because if we're all just focusing on where we're screwed up, where we're broken, that's where we stay. So you have to actually celebrate this with your tribe, with your people, with your chosen family, with your partner, whoever that is that actually helps you lift up. And if you're surrounded, for me, the people I choose to surround myself with are the ones who are going to celebrate those wins with me.
I believe that this idea of you finding people that feel comfortable with you celebrating, because you gotta own your victories. You gotta be unapologetic. You can't be apologetic about your victories, your wins, because if you feel the need to be apologetic about your wins, you're probably not in the right environment, because people are too much into a certain comfort zone there, and they are like feeling that you might be wanting more than what they have, and you wish to break out with the group. There are several things. We could go into so much detail on how people will fight you if you try to outgrow the group. Maybe you need to accept that perhaps your companies that you wish to have are different. And that's why we create the communities, right, Michael? Michael is creating a community. I am creating a community. We participate in the community of Mind Valley. The more communities you identify that are aligned with what you have, what you wish to offer, what you wish to be changing, because it's all about the exchange that you have with other people. We had our meeting about networking, and there was this person there saying that her network just worked for other people because she connected everybody and everything. And I was like, oh, so she just sees the value of networking by connecting people. If she's already connected to the people that she knows, her network doesn't work for her. But it's not about the connections, it's about the exchange. So you need to participate in that community that welcomes this exchange, this trading of, I recognize your value, you recognize my value. That's why I think team sports are so good. That's why we are creating the communities. Today, with the digital tools that we have, you can find any community that you identify with, you can easily find and connect and do meaningful exchanges.
Absolutely. And it's a matter of finding the right flavor of community for you. Like for me, that's the kind of community that I want, someone that's going to help uplift me. Others actually really need that competition to push them to the next level. And sometimes it's a combination of both. There's some people that say that, just a toxic positivity. I've heard a term used many times where you're only focusing on the positive, which I can understand in some communities may actually be, what is it called? Spiritual bypassing, where you're only actually acknowledging the great things. And that's not really what I'm getting at here. It's more a matter of being aware of where you are doing amazing, being aware of where your gifts are, being aware of what the next possible phase is for you. We have to acknowledge where things are dirty, where things could be better in order to help transmute them into something that's going to serve us. I know right now my daughter's struggling with things in her life. It's an opportunity for her to learn. It may not be in the moment when she is upset that it's like, okay, so what's the lesson in this? May not be the right time for that. So it's not always about, hitting that hard. For me, that's the community that I want is going to help me find the solutions, help me find the wins, help me find what that next way to celebrate this. Maybe it's only half a step I've taken towards that goal, but it's a half a step towards that goal rather than away from it. And sometimes that Steve Kotler talks a lot about the 4% push. So you're actually not just meeting that expectation, but actually pushing it by 4%. Because then it's not so overwhelming that it's 150%, and it's not below par at 98%, but you're pushing yourself just a little bit every single time. And when you make that push, maybe it's only 1% you make it. But if you're aiming for 4, is that a failure or is it a win? If you're aiming to make $5,000 and you only made $4,900, do you kick yourself for the failure or do you celebrate the fact that you made $4,900? See the growth when it shows up. Learn from where you don't actually make the mark, but without discounting the fact that you did come this far.
I understand this concept of toxic positivity. It is the first time I hear about this, and I understand what you're talking about. I've been into the woods here that has some water streams, and there is a waterfall. I went to go there to meet the place last week. You probably know about that, Michael. But when we were there, I was considering the things that could go wrong, like because we were in the middle of the woods and we took a shorter path that was too steep and there was like a fall there and then I was like, okay, this is wet. Sometimes whoops, a little bit. If we fall here, there's a great problem. There were other things in the path and then people came back from the woods like for a 30-minute walk in the dark. And I was like, things could go wrong. And somebody forgot something, had to go back alone, all those things. And I'm like, and people were like, we don't want to consider those things because it might attract them, you know, it might attract them. It's not like that. You need to be prepared, like we spoke about the preparation. Being prepared also involves you knowing what could go wrong, you understanding the mistakes that people commit. If people die in a situation like that or get hurt, seriously hurt, it's because they didn't consider the mistakes that could happen. When you consider those mistakes, like we spoke before, you will see that there are not so many. You will figure them out. You have solutions, you have plans for them, and you'll be able to tackle them if they appear. But how do you tie that to the celebration that we are speaking about? When you are prepared for the wins and prepare for the losses, what I want to say is that you celebrate continuing the game. You celebrate just continuing the game. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. But the thing is that, you know what? I'm still in the game. I'm still in the game. Does it make sense to you, Michael, what I just said? Like, I go around a little bit.
It does make sense to me. It is what I know Simon Sinek talks about as far as playing the infinite game. This game of life is not something that you ever truly cross the finish line until you're done. Those finite games is where we're talking about the celebration. When you've actually finished this race. That doesn't mean that you're done racing forever. You've crossed this finish line. You've actually started this. Maybe it started this race and that's what you're celebrating. And maybe this is preparing for the next race. Or if it is this job that I'm going to an interview, did you do well in the interview if you got the job or not? Did you actually eloquently present your case to the person who's actually interviewing you? That can be the win, that you learn something about a new company, you learn something that didn't work. It does certainly, it's not a matter of ignoring all the things that could potentially go wrong. It is actually being aware of them. But it's also, once again, you can celebrate the fact that you avoided them. Because that too is a celebration. I know so
Yeah.
many businesses who did this, or I know so many people who did that, and I avoided those hurdles because I did the research. I read the book. I actually did the program. I did the research to make sure that I was actually prepared before I made the commitment, which is why the preparation is first.
You celebrate even if you had like there is a scene in Billions from it is on Netflix. It's about those hedge funds and the district attorney of New York, things like that. That is a great problem in some market. It's a major disaster. And they have a major failure, a sabotage from another company. Right when that happens, they were waiting for a crucial moment to sabotage them. And then when this happened in the market, they poof, sabotage them. And they lost money. They lost a lot of money. But because of the actions that were taken, because of the preparation that was put into place, they lost a conservative amount to what they were expected to lose into that incident. And they celebrate that. They make it a major celebration. And we gotta do that. We gotta do that in life. We gotta don't get too attached to the things that you expectations. Celebrate the small things, all the small things that happens, your daily things, your daily actions, your daily efforts to live your life the way you wish. People should celebrate the beginnings, That was something I don't remember exactly what you say, but that was something that you say that you touched that kind of led me to say, but yeah, you gotta start and celebrate for this start.
Absolutely. And
That
I think what I had said was it's not just celebrating the end of the race, it's the beginning of the race. Did you start this, new fitness program? Did you start reading this book? Because many times the momentum doesn't begin. I mean, you don't have momentum. The actual concept, the definition of momentum is actually moving in a particular direction, right? And it's the hardest to break momentum from zero, to break the initial friction. That's actually true in physics as well as it is in our minds. So you have to celebrate as well when you start, as well as your progress and your win, which is why it really comes back, why this is one of the pillars for my coaching program of celebrating the starts, the progress, and the wins, because that's what helps us move our lives forward. Because I can sit here and complain to you about how this part of my life is so bad, but until I'm willing to change directions, whether until I'm willing to actually make a move in a different direction, it's not going to change. We have to celebrate the starts, the progress, and the wins. It's definitely a way that we can, reinforce what's going on. And if this is a group that you're in, a team that you're on, a practice that you're in, journaling, as we were kind of talking about the beginnings, and I know that doing your, something daily to help support you. There's a YouTube video out there that I know has gone pretty viral from a Navy SEAL who talks about make your bed every morning. So then you know that you've accomplished at least one thing today. It's really simple.
it's the symbolism.
Right. It's
I
the
was talking.
symbolism for not only that you started, but if you go home at the end of the day and you're ready to crash into bed, that even if the rest of the day sucked, you did accomplish that one thing. It's that one thing you can say, that part I got done. And it takes a couple minutes. It doesn't necessarily, to me, need to be the military style of bounce a quarter off of it with all the tight sheets, but did you make your bed? And it's just one of those habits that starts the day off. I've noticed whenever I haven't done that, the rest of my day can be considerably more chaotic.
When we were preparing for this, I thought about this type of celebration, celebrate the start and things like that. And the image that came into my mind was the Titanic when in the movie they are departing. It's the beginning of a journey. They are starting there, they are getting out of the harbor, and people are celebrating and they are all so excited. And it's also a farewell. It's the end of something. Like that is a relationship there that people had that would be separated. They didn't knew how long. In that case, for many people, forever. And it was the farewell, the goodbye. That side that we spoke about the negative things and everything.
It's
I
interesting that you bring that up around even 'cause like I talked about those changes that the being able to start momentum in a different direction. In some ways, whenever you are celebrating these wins as you're moving towards another place, it's because you've committed to be different. You are going to be a different person when you're acting in a different way, when you're making different choices, which I'm not sure if everybody in who's done this personal development work has gone through, but I know for me, I've very much experienced that loss, that grieving the old version of me, which can hold us back sometimes. We don't want to let go of that identity of that I am that person, and knowing that that's going to be okay and surviving through that is one of those things that is going to pass. It is going to be one of those things that we can celebrate, that I'm going to go through this, and then on the other side I'm going to be different. I'm going to express myself differently. Being willing to celebrate the fact that we are letting go of that old version of ourselves and moving into our future is also really, to me, is super important as we're becoming self-actualized as human beings.
as we become self-actualized as human beings. What do you mean by that, Michael?
So it's a core premise around the lifebook process, and I know that Richard Branson talks about it as well. It's the idea of discovering and moving towards the best version of ourselves, and it's going to be a growth process. And it's like for me, if you were to ask me 5 years ago whether I'd be doing a podcast or a summit or being a coach, I wouldn't be able to tell you that that's where I was going. It was on my mind, it kind of passed through, but that's part of me stepping into my gifts, stepping into my power, becoming the best version of myself. And to me, that is part of the journey for human beings on this planet is to become the best version of you. And some people struggle through that. I know I have. I've seen many people as well struggle through trying to figure out what that is and maybe going off on a detour for a while and then coming back. And it is impactful journey that we're on. And as much as we do all the actions out there, all of that is really just a reflection of what's going on in here as I discover the best version of me and then express that to the world.
Interesting that Nietzsche, he has something speaking about this. I believe it is in the Thus Spoke Zarathustra. And he speaks about the Übermensch, what he calls the Übermensch, which is a concept that the human being, it's like in a herd. Many people, it's society. It takes you like a wave, like a current, and it's hard for you to resist. And it's like if you ever been to the carnival of Recife and Olinda, you would probably know the feeling, because you just can't move like in a big concert. Lots of people, it's just hard. Now imagine if those people are moving in a certain direction and you are there in the middle, you feel lost. It's hard to get out of it. You need to pass through resistance. People will look you ugly, like, why are you going to the opposite direction? You are interrupting the flow. To the people that decide to pass through this resistance and cross this challenge that is the herd, and finally find a way out to the herd and goes to look for, to explore their own path. He calls them Übermensch, which means Superman or something like that. And we should celebrate the simple things like deciding that, you know what, I'm not satisfied with what society expects of me. I'm not satisfied with perhaps what my family or someone that I admire expects of me. I'm going to find my own purpose. I'm going to find my vision for the future, the one that I really identify with, the one that I relate with. I know that the life book process has this great work around the vision for the future. Is this the same thing, Michael?
So, self actualization is as much about the present moment as it is to where you're going. So, and it's one of the things that I really appreciate of the framework that is the lifebook process. Is it is, yes, setting the intention of where you're wanting to go, but it's also a matter of building up and understanding and refining what your beliefs are and determining if those beliefs are in alignment with where you want to go. And if you need to, maybe inspecting them, look at them, twist them around. If I think that I'm always going to be a smoker and that's a belief of mine, then me quitting smoking is never going to happen. Personally, I've never been a smoker. I consider myself a non-smoker in this particular case. But self-actualization is about discovering who we are in the process. And some of that is that I need to go through this crucible. I need to go through this path. I need to take on this exercise. I need to read this book so that I can resonate with what's inside of me and see that come out and see that blossom. So that really is the self-actualization process, is a matter of engaging in the things that's going to bring out that best version of us. It's one of the things that I constantly say to my fiance is that I work on my stuff so I can bring the best version of myself to the relationship. It doesn't mean that I don't have issues, I don't have problems, I don't have stresses and things that I'm anxious about, but I bring in this moment the best version of myself. And in doing so, we actually communicate really well. We actually work on the stuff with us when we're together. She works on her stuff that she needs to do for her work, for her training, and we bring great ideas to each other. And we celebrate our wins. We celebrate the processes that we've done apart, and that then gives us the soil for our relationship to grow. And we can see that as time goes on and the things that we do take on together. But I also know that this self-actualization process, to me, is one of those things that is the lifelong journey that we're going through. You don't really stop doing it until you're no longer with us, until you're actually passing on to the next phase. And it's one of the things that my grandfather had said many times, is that learn something new every day. And that can be about yourself, that can be about the world around you, that can be about a friend or a colleague. And he, for himself, if he didn't feel like he learned something new that day, he'd open up a dictionary and read the definition so he learned something new today. That's how he self-actualized. That's how he actually celebrated his ability to be active in this world.
And to grow, right? Like if you give a small step every day, you are moving forward. You need to have this feeling of moving forward, and you need to recognize it. And you need to have the vision for the future. Jim Rohn would say that this is the setting of the sail. He would say that it's not what happens that matter, it's what you do with what happens. And you can't change your destination overnight, but you can change your direction. All those things are related to this vision for the future. We need to have a vision for the future, because if we are conscious about now and we have this ability, this is an extreme powerful tool: imagination, communication, how to get people together in pro of our vision. This is an extremely powerful tool, and we need to use that in our lives, and we need to set our vision for the future. The life book process helps you to do that. But the point I wish to reach is that you need to celebrate when you get there, when you see those things happening, but you can't wait for those things to get here for you to celebrate. You need to get the small celebrations of every day, the small feelings of gratitude, in order for you to recognize those feelings and be able to put emotion, because emotion is fuel, it's energy, to put emotion when you visualize the future. Because otherwise, we are wired to do the immediate gratification thing. We are wired to do the thing that will give you something now. And we totally forget, we neglect the future because of the now. But if we start to link those feelings of gratitude that we can have now for the small things with the big things, that give us motivation, that give us drive, that give us purpose to be with consistent action.
Absolutely. I'm 100% on board with that. It really is like when you're learning to ride a bike. Is at first, when you first start riding a bike, you don't want to go too fast because you're afraid you're going to fall, until you get to the point where you realize that in order to not fall, you need to be going fast enough. And celebrating the fact that you can actually be going without touching the training wheels or without someone holding on the back is an amazing step along the way. But just putting your foot on the pedals, giving it a shot, and actually getting out there to do it, to the point that many people, once they've learned to ride a bike, they never forget how to do it. I know for me at this point, when I was a teenager, I could ride a bike without my hands and just actually do it with my weight. That's not something that is a skill of mine anymore. That part I've forgotten. In my body, I don't know how to do that anymore, but I still remember how to ride a bike. I go out often. In fact, I was out today, and it's a skill that I've learned, and I need to remember that that's a skill that I've earned, not just learned. And that's where the celebration is all this knowledge, all these skills that we learn over time are impactful for what we take to the next phase. To me, that's really why it's so scary when someone gets something like Alzheimer's and they're forgetting how to do things, forgetting about who they are and their memories. Because once again, that dopamine hit that comes from celebrating, you're like, okay, I can no longer remember when I used to win. I can no longer remember the smile on someone's face, which is a celebration between two people. The simplest one is just smiling at someone's face and letting them see that you're happy. Is that mini celebrations we're talking about. Try it sometimes when you're actually walking in public and just smile at somebody randomly. It'll be interesting what their response is. And so many people in public are like, "What's wrong with you?" And I'm like, "I'm just smiling. I'm happy to be here." Why is that so wrong? I'm just celebrating being able to be out in public now. With your mask on, it may be a little bit more difficult, but still, you can see with the eyes. And it very much helps me connect to other people. I think that the masks are necessary, but it's one of the things that I think that we've lost is the whole rest of our facial expressions that we do whenever we're interacting with people. Some of the biggest body language things happen in our face and in our posture and everything else, but just the shape of your nose and mouth are huge cues about how someone is relating to what you're doing. We've had to learn to read those cues differently. So this is an opportunity to learn how to read the cues differently.
And you notice as well that sometimes when we smile to people on the street. So you're just there like walking and you're happy and you smile and your eyes cross with someone else. The person might smile back. Sometimes they just see that you have a nice posture, a nice attitude. And for some reason, they don't know you. They feel compelled to just know there's something like, yeah, it's interesting. Be with a nice attitude. So we celebrate this conversation, Michael. Celebrate your contribution, this exchange. I celebrate being here. And if you wish to, you can celebrate with us too, hitting subscribe, liking this video, help us spread this word. This is the Elevate Your Best podcast. I'm Bruno Martins from the Cyber Journey.
And I'm Michael Danklos from Elevate Your Best. Go out today and celebrate one thing and tell us about it. Leave it in a comment at the video below. Let us know what you're celebrating for today.
Exactly. That's it for today, guys. Bye-bye.